Honesty and transparency are how we operate. Supply chain challenges are not always easy, but the commitment from our team to take on the responsibility is unwavering. When you encounter a challenging supply chain crosswind, the whirlwind of options and variables rise and fall. You seek the shelter of predictability. You seek to find the eye of the hurricane. That's where we live. Donovan. Logistically speaking, we are at the center of it all.
Let the train!
You are listening to What the Truck. Are you ready to truck it? It's time for your Nooner with Dooner. Welcome to Wednesday. It is Wednesday, right? Yeah, it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. Hey, have you got your Oscar picks in? It's been on my mind because Triangle of Sadness just came on Hulu last night, and I put it on and I fell asleep. One of the issues is like 2.5 hours long. They make like modern movies way too long, in my opinion. 90 minutes is the way to go. I want to know the logistics industry's Oscar picks, though, so leave those in the comments. I'm going to ask some of the guests. Of the ones that are out there, I've seen All Quiet, Maverick, Avatar 2, Everything Everywhere All at Once. And of those, Everything Everywhere. Easy pick. Easy pick. Avatar 2 shouldn't even be there. It's a theater 3D experience. Anyways, we got a lot going on the show today. Today, I'm catching up with Rachel Premack. We're talking about some sad news with a carrier shutdown. We also have Norfolk Southern's mounting issues. Just more and more stuff coming out about that company. They also had another accident yesterday where somebody died. We're going to be talking about warehouse robots rising up. We'll learn the latest about bots and my T-sort right here with Michael Carmody from Tompkins Robotics. He's coming by telling us how these work, the state of warehouse robotics, automation, all that good stuff. Better call Bart, Project44’s Bart DeMonk. He's talking about his brand new supply chain hotline. Have you called Bart yet? He'll answer your supply chain questions. He's also going to talk about Project44’s Vision Quest and what's going down at Food Shippers Conference. Then Super Trucker will bring the trucker's perspective when he talks about freight recession at the ports, strap work, how pre-trip inspections work, and what to do when a car crashes into your podcast. All right, let's tip the band. We'll get into things. Supply chain challenges are not always easy, but the commitment from the team at Donovan Logistics to take on the responsibility is unwavering. Donovan, logistically speaking, they are at the center of it all. Visit them at donovan.com. All right, now it is my favorite international woman, editorial director at FreightWaves, Rachel Premack. Hey, Rachel, happy International Women's Day.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You, and that is true. You have been overseas. You started your career over in Asia, did you not? Or you wrote for a while over there?
Yeah. After I graduated college, I was a freelancer over in South Korea for a year and a half before moving back here. So I am an international woman on International Women's Day. So
better bagels, New York City or Singapore?
I've never been to Singapore, but Seoul, I would get a bagel like every now and then in Seoul. Just to get a taste of home. They're not great.
Well, I mean, you were you caused an incident on Twitter a while ago when you said like Einstein's Bagels had better bagels than anything in New York.
I really enjoy the Einstein's Bagel sandwich. That's the Santa Fe. It has a sausage. It has like jalapeno cream cheese. It's really good. I haven't seen it. I think because the actual ingredients are so tasteless that they have to be really creative in putting combinations together, whereas in New York it's just a bagel and cream cheese and it's really good. But you know, in the Midwest we've got to be a little bit more creative because we just don't have that high quality bagels going for us.
I hear you. You know what's not delicious is Freight Market. Freight Market is terrible, and we've been talking about this for a while, what it has been doing to carriers. And yesterday we got some shocking news about FreightWorks, right? There was a very heartfelt video that we didn't publish, but was released to their staff, letting them know that the company had shut down. This is a place that employs 220 people, about 150 drivers. And they're in a tough spot, Rachel. You know, we have plates coming up. You're a 150 carrier. There's actually a truck on my desk. You see that NEMF over here? I believe you've even written about that one. They had that issue where a big customer of theirs was Amazon, right? And you get into that size where you can get in the room for the RFP, But you can also get taken advantage of in that room for the RFP. And NEMF, they gave way too much of their capacity to Amazon. Amazon pulled. This company right here, FreightWorks, in their video, their CEO said their issue was the freight recession and some customers pulling concessions on volumes and rates. What's going on, Rachel?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, FreightWorks is, a mid-sized carrier, about 140, 150 drivers based in North Carolina. They told their employees yesterday that they would be shutting down. They would do it in a more orderly fashion, unlike those who remember Celadon in 2019, where they suddenly shut down, drivers were stranded, freight wasn't delivered. It's going to be a little bit more orderly than that. So it is, probably a good proactive way to shutter a company. But they said that their core customers demanded significant rate reductions, significant changes to volume. And it's just exactly what you said. Like, this is a company that does have these really good, solid contract customers, but during a time of a freight recession where these large companies are trying to reduce their rates, that's going to really harm a lot of these medium family-owned type of trucking carriers. And I think FreightWorks is definitely a victim of that right now.
Yeah, and I have to give them some credit. I know a few of the people over there, one of them being Jordan Kidd. He does the Life by the Mile podcast. And I had talked to him yesterday. And one thing he really wanted to stress was that the company was working hard to not make this a Celadon situation, to make sure that the drivers got home. And they even have a recruiter on staff that is trying to get employees placed. They had to let go. So, shutdowns suck, but at least they're doing it the right way. But my question to you is, Rachel, how concerned should carriers in that 150 truck space, that sort of medium space, be this year? Because they seem like, to me, it seems like there's a big target on them because you have so many different pressures coming up in this. And 150 trucks sounds like a lot, but it's also just enough, like with NEMF, to kind of hurt yourself.
Yeah. I think, so last year we saw a few medium-sized carriers file for bankruptcy or shut down. But it wasn't maybe as many as people would have expected. I think that's because contract rates were still relatively strong. A lot of these carriers still had a lot of cash left over from COVID. But now I think a lot of those cash reserves have been drawn down, and contract renegotiation season is upon us or just about to come up. So it is going to be a really challenging time for these small family-owned carriers, or just small to medium-sized carriers that do have these really great contracts that are supposed to help them through tough times. But sometimes, as you mentioned, these large companies, they do call the shots, and if they're going to demand significant rate reductions or volume reductions, I think a lot of these companies are going to have some tough choices be made.
Now, Ted Elling from Dynamo Ventures, he tweeted out, I talked to a CEO of a trucking company with 150 trucks, and he said their biggest customer is down 25%, and they are taking loads at break even to keep his drivers. He thinks the second half of the year will be much stronger. Shippers have inventory and warehouses. And shipping out of those. So he thinks there's going to be a buildup, but he said something interesting there, and it's that they're just taking some of these loads to keep drivers on staff. But the concern here is they lose confidence in that second half of the year, right? Because if you're holding on to this capacity just to make sure you have it when things turn the corner after spring, summer, what happens if it doesn't? What happens if produce season sucks, Rachel?
Yeah, that's definitely a big concern, because I've noticed there's kind of like half and half of the carrier and shipper world is saying, oh, the second half of the year is going to be a little bit better. Things will start to perk up by the second half of the year. And then you see this other half of the industry that we're in saying, no, I think the second half of the year is also going to be pretty bad, maybe even worse than what we're seeing right now. But I think the key issue is how these contracts are negotiated right now, because if they're not strong enough, if other carriers experience what FreightWorks experienced, where shippers demand big concessions on these contracts, that's going to hurt them for the rest of the year. It doesn't matter if the second half is that much stronger, unless they can really chase the spot market that much more. But I think we really do need to think about whether the second half of the year is going to be as amazing as some people think it is, because it does seem like a 50-50 situation right now. And having read some of these earnings reports from major shippers, they're not super enthusiastic about the second half of the year. They're a bit cautious. So I think it is going to be a challenging year ahead for carriers for sure.
Yeah, and if you look at what drove our huge bubble, it was overseas imports. And when you hear the conversation that in their contract season that's going on, I'm hearing few deals happened. Shippers are in no rush to stop the free fall. Rates have settled on the West Coast at $1,000. Most people are paying $1,000. On the East Coast, they're paying $2,000. There's no reason to disrupt that. Capacity seems easy. And in this business, we never learn, right? It's easy to go back to just in time. It looks better on a balance sheet. And right now, well, the carriers are down. Like, who's going to lend them an olive branch? Nobody has any interest in doing that.
Right. And especially, I imagine a lot of these shippers might think, you guys had it good for 2020, 21, and part of 22. Like, it's our time now. Like, maybe they want to swing the pendulum back in their favor. But I think the key thing is having these long-term customers who, when things are, favorable for you, you might give them a break. And then when, the market turns against you, as it inevitably will, hopefully those customers also give you a break. But yeah, I imagine that's easier said than done for these companies for sure.
Well, I detected a little pessimism in your voice too about and I know back in December we were all kind of like, you know what, we think the second half's going to look good. We think that we think things should turn around. But now in March, it's we're halfway through that. I'm kind of joining you on that pessimistic side. Just looking at what's going on the ocean, maybe we're looking at fall and hopefully we have a good peak season then, or maybe produce saves us. Let's help some people though. I put out there that when I shared this post, I asked the community if anyone was hiring. So we did have a couple people who answered. The first one was Gwen Rand. She said, she was someone who lost her job. She said, I'm one of the drivers. It's sad. It was like working with your family. Do anything for them. And I've heard that from a lot of people over there. This was a very strong family company. They had a sort of a strong Christian bend to them. So the people in there, like they just felt a strong sense of community, especially if those are your beliefs as well. Chris M. said there's a fair number of remote positions that Ross Pomerantz built into a spreadsheet, and they made it into a website. If you go over my LinkedIn profile, I can click on that one. Cameron Peaches said, I have a few fleets with capacity for good drivers. Let's connect. That's Valley Trucking for those of you out there. Molly Rushing says, Destin Smith has a lot of driver positions open. Again, all these comments are on my LinkedIn. Mirza Durik at Eagle Eye Truck Line says, absolutely. Give us a call at 616-648-8105. Allison K. Sykes says, sorry to hear this. Always looking for great drivers at Eagle Transport. And Cole Ryan Lopez is the recruiting assistant. She's the one at FreightWorks right now that is working with all of them to place people. She is also on that post I put up there. So if you're out there, you have jobs for these folks, help them out. And last piece of good news on FreightWorks before we move on is Jordan Kidd over there. He said that even though the company shut down, he does have the Life by the Mile IP for his podcast, so he may still continue doing that. And if you were a listener of that, I'm sure they'd be very excited. Yeah, very cool. Yeah. So again, seems like they're doing it the right way. It's sad to hear. And Rachel, I'm afraid this isn't going to be the last 150 carrier that we talk about on here. The one thing I wish we could get past was Norfolk Southern, but they just won't get out of the news. There was another accident yesterday where somebody died. The EPA reports are coming out. They're walking back what they said about the health of the environment and the water, saying, oh, it's worse than we suspected. Surprise, surprise. And then all these safety issues are coming to light as well. Rachel, what is going on with this company?
Yeah, so the federal government the National Transportation Safety Board is actually launching a special investigation into the safety culture at Norfolk Southern. They're citing these 5 significant accidents that have come across, that has happened at Norfolk Southern since December of 2021. And 2 of those significant accidents have actually happened in the last 3 days. There was a 212-car freight train that derailed in Ohio on March 3rd. And as you mentioned, that tragic accident where a Norfolk Southern conductor died on March 7th. A dump truck collided with the train car that he was working with in Cleveland, and that or near Cleveland, and that unfortunately killed that conductor. And there was also another derailment along with the famous derailment that we've been talking about in East Palestine. There was another derailment October 28th, also in Ohio. So there's been a lot of incidences and derailments that have really raised the concern of the federal government. And it seems like they're going to try to get to the bottom of this and learn a little bit more about what's actually going on there.
Yeah, I mean, I think they should put that under a microscope. I mean, look, this happens. The public deserves it. People in those communities that the trains go through deserve it. And Ohio deserves it. Ohio is just getting battered by NFS. Like, ever since this news started, it's one after another in Ohio.
Yeah, Ohio specifically, it is confusing. There was that hazmat derailment in my native home state of Michigan also last month, but a lot of these incidences are happening in Ohio. And I think along with Norfolk Southern, I think this is definitely raising the public awareness of safety at other, major rail companies as well. I've seen some reports on BNSF and Union Pacific in recent weeks, just looking into what workers there are saying about kind of the safety culture at those major carriers. But there's definitely a lot more curiosity and interest of what's going on in the railroads, and I think it's definitely good that the government and mainstream media is kind of a little bit more curious about this essential part of our freight network.
Very true, Rachel. By the way, I just noticed something. Like, if I sit like this with the logo, it looks like I have like cat ears or devil horns or something.
That's fun, and you got the eye hat,
like a Pokemon, yeah. Before I let you go, I want the logistics industry opinion on what the best picture for the Oscars is. Here are the nominees. Have you seen any of these? Do you have a pick?
So I have seen two of them. I would have liked to see Tar and Women Talking. Well, I'd like to see all of them, but I've only seen Top Gun, and I saw the Banshees of Inisherin last weekend, actually. I think if I were to pick based on the ones that I've seen, I would probably pick the Banshees of Inisherin. Top Gun was a great movie.
Yeah.
But really I don't know if it's like I don't know if it's like best picture of the year level, unfortunately. I mean, I hope Craig doesn't watch this.
This is your last appearance on What the Truck, Rachel, after.
Yeah.
No, I didn't pick Top Gun either. I liked All Quiet. I like ground war movies better, and I thought that did a great job of showing like the horror of World War I. And you see so many World War II movies. I welcome that. Best one since 1917. Yeah. So that was your pick? Is the Banshees of what you've seen?
Yeah. I thought it was a really good movie. It definitely stayed with me. It kind of talked about friendship, talked about Ireland, which I feel like people, even though so many people in the U.S. have Irish descent, I feel like we don't talk enough about like recent Irish history. So I thought it was a really good movie for sure.
Well, very cool. Rachel, thank you so much for stopping by. Everybody subscribe to her newsletter Modes and catch her every Wednesday right here on What the Truck. Take care.
All right. Thanks.
Take it easy. All right. Meanwhile...
Everybody, I'm so sorry in advance. My name is Alexandra Starr. I just released a song, and I'm going to sing it for you guys right here. I hope you enjoy. I don't want your money. No, I'm a little drunk, and I can go right now.
I don't blame him. There's been a lot of videos that come out lately of people in public just whipping out acoustic guitars. Like, I saw one the other day of someone in an elevator was playing acoustic, a trapped elevator. There's another one on like a Southwest flight. Terrible. Where are these people? I hope I avoid them. It's Michael Carmody at Tompkins Robotics. Last time I saw this guy, they had a booth with all these little T-sort robots running around, and then he DM'd me, and he's like, hey, come over. We got one of these for you. And I was like, what? Awesome stuff. How are you doing, Michael?
I'm doing great. How are you, Tim?
I'm awesome. As you can see, I'm very excited to have my new robot friend here. It's been on my desk ever since you sent it to me, and I think that they're really neat.
Awesome. Well, this is a great opportunity for us. We're really excited to be on your show. Ultimately, these are the non-smart robots of the warehouse industry. We call them sort robots. All they do is sort, but they really just have 3 or 4 functions. We put in some technology, and the technology is what creates the smart element and allows these robots to work in swarms for sortation on order fulfillment and returns.
I see them in action. So what are they on? Is that a specialized floor that they run on? Tell me about like the system.
Yes, so they're on tables. They're steel tables, but they are modular, so they can be configured in any configuration that maximizes the space in the warehouse. And then they run on a special tile that has an RFID chip inside of it. The RFID chip allows the robot to know where it is on the platform at any given time. And so this allows humans to really double, triple, even quadruple their throughput, because all they're doing is picking in batches and then feeding the robots, which then organize them into the actual orders or store replenishment or wherever the destination of that particular client is organized.
Interesting. So the T-sort, what is usually feeding them? I see where it's dropping off. I've seen those warehouses that have like the funnels that drop things down from the top, but I also see some conveyor belts working in there. Or I guess people could put them in there. But how would you typically install a system like this? And who would be the best use case?
Right now, I would say that most of our installations come with manual induction, which is a human putting the pieces on there to make sure that the barcode is read properly. However, we have 3 or 4 clients that are already exploring automated induction, where one robot will pick it up and put it on there onto another robot. So machine-to-machine applications. Right now, our best use case is probably Walgreens in the Central Fill Pharmacy. They've got 18 of these systems, and they ultimately, once the prescription has been filled and collated with all the prescriptions for the day, they seal in a bag, put it on our robots, which then sort by the store. And then within 24 hours, your prescription is filled and delivered to your local Walgreens.
Interesting. So I'm looking at this thing here, and you can see them like moving. But how does it work? What is driving this? What's powering it? How does it think? How does it know what to do?
Yep. So the robot that we sent you is actually a shell that has none of the motors in it, which is why you're wondering why it doesn't do much.
Yeah.
But inside there, the ones that we put in industrial warehouses have sensors and motors and gear reducers that essentially allow it to quickly move, fast, stop, turn, or tilt. And then ultimately, all that technology is collaboration with all of the other robots so that they don't bump into each other or run off the tables or create other unsafe situations that you see with some other robot applications.
Interesting. Now, Tompkins, is T-Sort the only robot you do, or do you have a whole suite of robots? What is the what's the company approach? What's your business model behind robotics?
Up until this show and probably this week, I would have said yes, T-Sort's the only robot that we have in North America. But in 2 weeks, we're going to be at ProMat in Chicago, and we're revealing a new robot line that will be in the Pick Assist AMR space that will ride around on the floors and be similar to a Locust or a Six Rivers in terms of what you can buy and deploy in your warehouse.
Interesting. Now, when you're like engineers and everything are putting these together, what kind of considerations do you have to factor in for the user end? Because, right, like all this tech and all this stuff is great, but what really matters and the way we sell it is we actually have to address the concerns of the warehouse industry and the shipping industry. Tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. The number one thing that I ask clients for when they're interested in this is a data set that would give us some sort of indication of how many orders they're processing, how many pieces are in those orders, and what kind of time frame that has to happen. Our robots obviously can handle all kinds of different speeds and throughputs, but we want to tailor it so that the ROI for the client falls into their budget expectations, and they can justify the system within 24 months or less to really cover the same cost they would pay if they were to hire just humans to do all this sortation. So the technology addresses the labor shortage in the warehouse.
Interesting. What kind of like ROI are your customers seeing with a device like this?
Typically, it's 18 months to 20 months. That's a typical payback that covers all of your costs, the implementation, the software, calibrations, and testing. But once that system is up in place, they can add to it. So ultimately, the ROI can get even shorter based on the dynamics and throughputs of what the clients are requiring.
How scalable are these systems?
Very scalable. We can get up to 10,000 orders per hour, which is up to like 50 or 60,000 pieces per hour on one of these tables.
Interesting. Now, do you have to have a modern warehouse to bring in something like this? What do you have to consider about your own location when wanting to automate and bring in robotics?
Not really. The one thing that we kind of require, that's really the only requirement, is that you have to have a system, an ERP or a WMS system that interfaces with us to pass orders through digitally. Otherwise, it's not going to be a cost-effective system. But the floors can be unlevel. We can have 2 different levels. We can get very creative on the engineering because everything comes in on casters, so it's all classified as furniture. There's no permitting. There's no hazmats, fire safety. None of that is required to put the system in. And the power that it plugs into is the same power you plug into your appliances in your home. So there's no power conversion required.
Why not just like a cyborg with hands and kneecaps and legs that can do the same exact thing that a human being could do?
Ultimately, it comes down to payback, right? Those robots are much more expensive. The smart robots that you see from Boston Dynamics and the guys that can flip and jump and dance, those are going to be much more expensive than what we're able to process through our T-Sort application.
Interesting. So how you mentioned they're but how smart can they be? Like how complex of an arrangement or system could I build out of something like this?
Well, up until a couple of weeks ago, I would have said that you can only get really what's on your square footage on your footprint. Yeah. However, we've now come up with multiple levels. So you can go 3, 4, 5, 6 levels high. And the human is just inducting the same way because there's a lift that brings it up to the right level and attaches it to the robot with the right destinations. So the complexity is starting to become very intense, but that just creates a smaller footprint and a lighter ROI for the clients to do more work in less space.
You shake hands, you get out to these events. I saw your booth at Manifest. What kind of questions are shippers bringing to you and warehouse owners? What are their needs now? What do they want out of robotics?
They want accuracy, timeliness, and short setup because they are typically 90 days from a decision, and when they want that benefit hitting their floors and helping them on their profit and loss sheets, right? Especially 3PLs. I would say most of my interactions and conversations are with 3PLs and very large shippers. The very large shippers are buying the system. The 3PLs are very excited about the RAS program and being able to buy this as a service. So ultimately, we can get this to about 5 to 10 cents a sort. And for 3PLs, that's very attractive in their business model.
Now, let's say I like what you're hearing and I go, hey, Michael, I want to do a trial. I want to put some of these in my location. What does stand-up look like? What does setup look like? And what's sort of the business model behind these? Do I buy these once? Or you mentioned RAS, or is there sort of a software of a service behind it as well?
Yep. So the software as a service model is what we're doing with RAS. It's essentially software and robotics all under a monthly bill based on your usage. So it's very easy to get in. It's about 20 to probably 34 weeks to get set up from contracting. And all of this is turnkey. We set it up. We do all of the maintenance on it and do all of the spare parts, bring it all to you. So it's turnkey. So any 3PL can essentially bring this into their system, improve their productivity and accuracy, and pass that right on to their customers with a markup. So it's a profit center for each 3PL.
So I've been in warehouses are interesting places. I think they're the most ripe for automation, but they also vary drastically in the setups of them from like the world-class, almost clinical, like walking into a medical facility to like, it's a really sort of dingy place that you're surprised there's not mold on everything. It's a cool. What does the future look like for warehousing, though? Like 10 years from now, is it cyborgs walking around? I have every time I talk to robot people, they're like, that probably won't be a reality because hands are just so hard to replicate. Our bodies are incredible. The human body is absolutely fantastic, and our world is built for it. But is it those cyborgs, or is it more like different types of systems that can do very smart, specific tasks, sorting and moving?
I think it's the latter. I think you're going to see almost like a waterfall where the majority of products will fall into the first automation. The ones that don't fall in will then get handled by the second automation, which then all brings it together for the packing and shipping operation. And all of that will be automated almost like in a waterfall, but you're always going to have exceptions. You're always going to have stuff that's too big, too long, too heavy, can't go through your automation. So you're going to have a side channel for your exceptions, just like your airport does with handling your bags, right? If it's oversized, it's going to go to a different baggage claim area than it is for your regular size stuff. So that's really the best example of this. I don't really foresee like cyborg robots really doing much of that work unless, the cost of humans just goes up so much that, the robots become the most cost-effective way to do it.
No, I hear you. Like that is the most logical. And I think that like when you look at pictures from like 20 years ago, yeah, you might have thought cyborgs and stuff would be walking around. When you actually look at the reality of how this would interface with people. But in terms of that, like 10 years from now, how much do you think automation will reduce the pressure of labor and the cost of labor in this space?
I think it's going to be significant. Ultimately, you're seeing this, technology curve where the technology is getting better and better and cheaper. And at the same time, the cost of humans is getting more and more expensive and they're harder to find. And they don't stay. If you even find them and train them, they may only be there 3 to 4 months before the next 3PL hires them away from you.
And Amazon, but 10 years from now, Amazon they may have employed everyone in America. By that point, they were just saying last year, there was a report that because they hired so many warehouse people during like that pandemic run up of freight, they're having a hard time finding other people because they've already employed a lot of them.
That's right. Ultimately, and there's only so many that want to walk around on cold concrete floors, right? I mean, it's brutal on your body. It's brutal for, not getting a lot of sunlight. So, I mean, work conditions wise, warehouses are probably not the best place for humans, but that's really where things have evolved to get us to where we are today.
So I worked at Talbot's briefly in Hingham, Massachusetts, and they would make you work in the warehouse every other week just to know how operations were going. And in August, in like South Shore, Massachusetts, taking garments on hanger out of 40-foot containers is hell. So like the more automation you can bring in, like your next object should be garments on hanger trailer unloaders. That's my passion project for you. Michael, before I let you go, you've given me a robot pick, but what's your Oscar pick? Have you seen all these movies? Here's what you have to pick from. What's the best picture? I want to know who logistics community's taken.
I have not seen any of these movies. So
wow.
None of them. I've been really too busy getting ready for ProMat. So
which one has the best name? Which one has the best name then?
I'll go with Avatar just because I am excited to see that at some point, but that's all I can share at this point.
All right. Well, we'll give a point to Avatar 2, Way of the Water. Now, people who want to learn about Tompkins, where do I send them to?
TompkinsRobotics.com is the best place. If you're going to be at the ProMat show, we're going to be in a booth. I don't have the booth number right now. They can look me up at LinkedIn. And then ultimately, we have a sister company called GRS. That company is another place that you can see the videos and how the technology works. That's primarily for the European clients, but also APAC clients will be looking at GRS branding. But it's the same as Tompkins Robotics, just different theater.
Well, very cool. And thank you for stopping by. And thank you again for my brand new robot. I very much appreciate this.
Awesome. Thank you.
Take care. All right. Better call Bart. So my next guest, he started a hotline on LinkedIn. And the same way he was doing it, I read there's this guy, Toby Doy Howell. He is sort of like my social media mentor, and he always puts out great advice. And he said, like, if you ever want to reach out to someone, the best way to do it is when they just launch something, because they're looking for people, they want people to use it. So I called this gentleman on his hotline and invite him on the show. It's Bart DeMunk. He's the CIO over at Project44, and I think he's taking a break out of Food Shippers to join us. So Bart, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show. Great to be here.
Yeah, where is Food Shippers this year? Is that Orlando? No, that's TCA.
No, it's in Palm Desert this year in California. So I've been here for the last few days.
Well, what is sort of that take? Do you have a general sense of takeaway out of Food Shippers? What are people talking about on the floor as you walk around?
There's a lot of excitement. Obviously, it's a little bit different from most, I would say, conferences. Like we were to get a manifest where you have a big expo hall with a lot of sponsors. Well, here it's more about networking. You have a lot of carriers, a lot of brokers, a lot of shippers, very few technology companies. We were one of the few ones there, but it's incredibly exciting to see these people interact. Obviously, everyone's talking about what is this year going to bring. So Bob Costello was there to talk about a little bit of a foresight into what's happening in the world of trucking. But I would say overall to just be part of all of the discussions happening between these folks was really exciting.
How did the farms do? They didn't happen to mention how they think produce yields are going to be this season, do they? We need those on the truckload side. We need a good season.
Sorry, say that one again.
Did they
I
mention
missed a part of it?
Yeah, the produce yields. Did they mention produce yields at all? Produce is coming up, and we really need that volume. So I hope the farmers did well.
Yeah, no, they didn't actually talk about it, but as we know, right, there's still a lot of discussions with produce, anything coming from, grain exports from China that are blocked because they don't get some of their products from like Ukraine, or issues with pesticides. We already know that we have seen a lot more issues with weather. So I think it's going to be a lot of issues around the world with really having the volumes that we need.
Very cool. Well, hey, guys in the back, roll this tape for Better Call Bart, and then we're going to talk about why he started this hotline.
Do you have supply chain problems? I'll get you out of trouble. Just call 855-527-BART and leave your name, your title, your company, and your supply chain question. And I will answer that question on the show.
I love the hotline. I love the little video that you made. I love the name. It all comes together. It just works. I called it up. I know one of my buddies right here in Chattanooga because I watched the first episode. I know Matt McClellan called from over at Covenant. Why did you start?
The first one on.
I'm sure he was. He is relentless. He is on top of everything. Why did you start the hotline though? I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of questions in supply chain, and sometimes people don't know where to go to have those questions answered. And as Chief Industry Officer at Project 44, being in the industry for a long time, I have a passion for education, both people that are already in the industry, especially also students. So we wanted to come up with an easy way and a fun way for people to be able to leave their message, get an answer, and then format that in a way that's kind of easy to digest. I think there's a lot of incredibly strong information out there, but sometimes I think when I'm on a webinar, how many times can you see the same webinar in the same format? So we wanted to change up the format. It's not necessarily kind of what you do. I think you guys are absolute experts at that, and in bringing content that everyone wants to see, but bring it in a fun way. I mean, your show is an absolute great example of that. So we wanted to do something that would, one, set us apart, hopefully would make it very digestible, but would make it very interactive with people.
Did you get any like weirdos calling in, or like what was the best question that you've received so far on the hotline?
We haven't had any weirdos call in yet, but
aside from me,
obviously we triage the questions, right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit like any other show when you have people calling in. It's not live necessarily. When we get the questions, we actually answer them live, but we build them up and then we answer them. But no, I think so far they've been really, really good questions, and I think it shows that people do have a lot of questions and that they are excited about having at least one source, or maybe many sources, but this being one of them, where they can ask a question and hopefully get an insightful response to it.
Now, and what's going on over at P44? Every time I look in the news cycle, there's some new release coming out by Project 44. What's 2023 looking like for you guys so far?
Well, a lot of the work we do is still the same, right? We continue to build the network around the globe. That's still very resource intensive and takes a lot of time, takes a lot of capital. So that's what we're doing around the world. Our expansions in Latin America and Asia Pacific and Australia are going very well. But then there's always new things that we're doing. The great thing is, with the more data that you are able to get to, the more things you can do with that data. At the same time, it's also, again, it's part of that education. I always said visibility is a journey. The more people use it, the more they understand, oh, we can do different things with it. So you go from tracking of where is a truck to understanding better insights into how you're executing transportation. Then you move that maybe into your transportation management platform to plan better. Then you're saying, hey, by the way, we also have sustainability needs. How does that apply to sustainability? And even further up, how do you use real-time data to do supply chain planning? Because you can no longer plan based on history, because the last 2 to 3 years, that's not going to repeat itself. So a lot of different ways of using data, but I would say it's a journey, and different people are at different stages in that journey, different maturity, different organizational readiness, and we're just right there by their side to help them to get the most value out of this platform.
What has you the most excited about it? Or even better, what had people you've been talking to recently most excited about the visibility space? Are we answering those challenges that shippers out there have?
Yeah, I think the insights that they're getting are getting so valuable. We're seeing that in the returns and the value we're creating for companies. I think 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I was still at Gartner. A lot of customers would come to me and say, how do we justify a visibility project? How do you actually identify where you're going to get the value? And today, with so many companies really struggling with cash flow, with maybe lower profit margins, less free cash flow, they're going like, Bart, we really need a solution that, one, we can implement easily or make the technology consumable. And then secondly, have something that really helps us to create that cash flow, meaning we got to do something around lowering costs, making things more efficient, maybe helping us to grow our revenue faster and with less people, or at least not having to add a lot of people, because talent is another challenge, as you know. And that's really so exciting to now see that we figured out not just how to convince people of the value of it, but actually seeing our customers getting the value out of these solutions, right? And people will ask me, what is it that you sell? I always sell, we sell value creation. It's not about technology solutions. Technology is an enabler. What we're really trying to do is help supply chains to be better connected, and through that, be more efficient, and do that for everyone involved in the supply chain.
Well, very, very cool. What is that number one more time for those of you out there who heard this and you're like, you know what? I want to ask Bart a question.
It's 855-527-BART, and you better call or I'm coming after you.
Better call him. Hey, thanks so much for coming on. Say hi to Jet for me. And before I let you go, I'm asking all you guys to come on today. What is your pick for Best Picture and Oscar? Have you seen any of these movies?
I have. I was a really big fan of the Elvis movie.
Wow.
I think I'm probably more of that generation. I'm not sure if it's going to win Best Movie, but I'm pretty sure it's going to win Best Leading Actor. But then again, being from that generation, I love Top Gun. It brought me back to when I was a teenager. Absolutely adore that movie. Not sure if it's going to win, but a lot of them. I would say one thing that I didn't see in there, The Whale wasn't in here. I know it did very well in maybe some other award shows. I've seen the trailer. I haven't quite seen the movie yet, but that's one that I was pretty excited about.
Yeah, in that movie, Brendan Fraser gained as much weight as I did over the pandemic. You know, he that was a Darren Aronofsky film.
I'm right there with you, man.
Yeah. Well, hey, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for stopping by, Bart. I'll let you get back to food shippers. Have a safe trip back, and we should catch up again soon.
We will. Thanks so much.
Take it easy. Yeah, guys, it's a wide open field this year. So everyone's picking somebody different. And you look at these because they put some like fan favorites. I really like how they threw like the Avatar and the Top Gun in there. You never usually get stuff like that. You usually get stuck with like crap like Birdman. Who has watched Birdman since it came out and won that? Who got through like that uncomfortable scene in the bed with Edward Norton and that girl? Screw Birdman. Hate that movie. All right, know who I don't hate though? I like Super Trucker. So let's bring him up. That almost sounds like a train horn.
A little bit, yeah.
It's the second poof that like really had like a train horny vibe to it.
They're higher pitched.
You have been, let's start on the Oscars because it's on my mind, and you have been a big fan of Everything Everywhere All at Once, as has the back, the production guys. They say that is their collective pick in the back, so they're unified.
Yeah, I'm going with that one. It was originally Top Gun until I saw Everything Everywhere All at Once on the list. But yeah, even my wife liked that movie. And it's very rare that both of us actually like a movie together.
Yeah, I think the only problem that Top Gun has is that it kind of like lacks that creative verve that you kind of expect out of an Oscar movie. It just doesn't. It screams maybe more special effects. Maybe that's my own bias, but it just seems more.
It's a fantastic popcorn movie.
It sure is. Now, you know, one thing that I've popularized recently is rate the strap work. But how exactly do straps work, Justin?
Hopefully with gloves, and also depends on what you're hauling. We used E-Tracks in the Postal Service, so we never had to worry about wrapping straps. Yeah. But a lot of these flatbedders, wrapping everything up and keeping it secure is tantamount. You need to keep everything secure, otherwise you're just going to lose all your equipment.
Now, some people can be sloppy with them. I bet you hate like a sloppy strap loader. So we found a video here that's a little tutorial on what it's like to wrap 30 feet of strap. Let's take a look.
Grab the tail of this strap and run it out all the way to make sure there's no twists in the strap. Now let's begin rolling.
I love the season changes.
And rolling.
Look, now he's in a new location. I think he's rapping through. The worst is when you're doing that and you like drop it, or you notice that there was like a kink that you just weren't paying attention to.
Yeah, a lot of guys are taking this a little too literally in the comments because they were like, "Oh, just get power drill and wrap it up with that."
It's like it's a
Once
joke.
you make it
It's
to
a
the
bit,
end,
man.
secure the excess strap.
I want to meet the guy who like figured that out. Like that is genius right there.
That right there. That did you used to do that little tie? Did you? You didn't have to work with many straps, did you?
No. And what's funny is one of my biggest pet peeves with strapping is people who leave a twist in the straps. I like to have it like perfectly flat along the cargo, but with flatbedding, you need at least one twist in there to keep the straps tight while you're going down the road.
Now, things that end up in Rate the Strap work, they obviously make their own rules up about strapping. But like, what does good strap work look like? How many straps are supposed to be on a load? Is that regulated?
Yes, and man, you really got me on the spot there because I never really did. I did one flatbed load, and the guy that was doing it with did most of the work. But I love seeing the comments of guys like nitpicking all that kind of stuff because it really shows the expertise in the field out there.
Let's take a look. Let's hope this doesn't happen. Let's hope this doesn't happen during our show. Roll this tape.
It got so quiet in here.
Oh, yeah.
How did I...
There's two guys. They're recording a podcast, and a car drives straight through the back of it. And I got to say, like, that's got to be maybe not great in the moment, but this has to be maybe one of the biggest viral ads you could ever have for your show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, we're going to be at Matt's at the end of the month, and I'm like really hoping nothing disastrous like this happens. But man, what a great way to promote the show.
Oh, you know, I think it's good. I mean, maybe if don't get like fully run over, but maybe if like, because they have semis on the floor there, don't they, at Matt's?
I believe so. Yes.
Maybe if one of those.
This will be my first year attending, so I'll let you know how it looks on the ground floor. But it's a lot easier to recover from an SUV nearly hitting you than it is to like be gently bumped into by a semi.
As long as it doesn't fully run you over.
Yeah. But what's funny, too, is the guy's wearing like a football jersey, so it kind of looks like an alternate universe me and Rooster right there.
The weirdest thing I ever had before I've never had someone crash through, but I did have someone get fired right before going on air, which is like never cool. It was actually at an event, too. They're about to like come on the show, and then you see him get the call, and you see their body language change, and then like dude just kind of like ran. I felt it, man. It's tough. That's not good.
No, the weirdest thing I've ever happened is actually just before coming on here today, my camera software crashed. So I'm using my laptop camera right now instead of my nice camera.
Closest crash you got. Well, hey, here's a video about what's going on over in the port. We've talked about these freight volumes. We talked about their tanking companies, but listen to this driver over at the ports in New York, New Jersey.
All right, guys, I'm going to show you this. This is messed up. Real messed up. This is the busiest port, PNCT. It's usually the most backed up. It's a Friday. See all the machines? I feel bad for the longshoremen. I feel bad for everybody. That's how many longshoremen are home. Every crane behind me from PNCT to 64 to 8 p.m. It's bad, guys. They're up. They are up. The recession is full blown coming. I pray for the best. I pray for everybody, and I pray that we all get through this, man. This is tough. This is tough.
Yeah, and look, that chart right there, I mean, it tells you really everything you need to know about how much the season in shipping has changed. This is a long cry from those massive lines of trucks waiting to get inside the terminal, massive backs up, just containers everywhere, nobody being able to find chassis. And look, granted, Chinese New Year just happened. The freight recession has been happening, so these kind of things are going to leave less boats on the water. But I think what has people so nervous is, people love to go, oh, it's seasonal. This happens every year. But the problem with that thinking is all that tells me is you haven't paid attention to freight for the past 4 years because seasonality has broke. I mean, we may return to it, and I would love to see like a traditional peak season just start to pick up. That's why I've been looking at produce. But what's coming on the water, what has me concerned is the recent talks about the ocean, too. I don't know. These contract deals not going down last week, people willing to hold out and be in the spot market, tells me that shippers are just not that concerned about capacity. Why are they not that concerned about capacity? Because they're just not seeing the order flow. I mean, everyone's thinking cost cutting. And that sucks because I know in trucking, we don't always think about ocean and imports and like, who cares? It's port truckers. And some guys even look down on the port truckers. But man, I'll tell you, over the past couple of years, that is what kept this whole thing buoyant.
Yeah, and it's a really good indicator of demand here in the U.S. All we see is right now reports of empty containers stacking up in China. So there's nothing being loaded onto them, and there's nothing coming across.
Brutal. Yeah. Have you talked to Richie over New York, New Jersey port guy recently? I know you did a podcast with him a couple of months ago.
Yeah, no, he's doing well. He's got a new gig, so he's already out of that line of work right now. More than happy for him. But yeah, drayage has always been kind of like a feast or famine kind of deal. Yeah. And we're definitely in like a famine right now.
I haven't seen Today around in a while either, New Jersey port girl. And I don't know if that just has to do with this downflow, and maybe a lot of those drivers are just getting chased out. Look, when times are good in there, a lot of those port drivers, it's a great job for home time. They'll all say we do it for home time, but the daytime sucks. It's not great to visit a port. It's not a good time. Hopefully, like Blue Cargo, I had them on the other day. Hopefully they can help make those appointments and those systems and make that job better for those drivers.
Yeah, I did a couple months at the port in Philadelphia, and I would say it was like medium. There were lines to get in, but you would do 2 to 3 trips a day. And that just was not possible over the summers. All people were complaining about was the lines. And now, where are the lines?
So let me ask you something. Big important thing, too. Pre-trip inspections. How do pre-trip inspections work? What are you looking for? What are you doing?
Well, the biggest takeaway immediately is your tires and your lights. Those are the big ones right there. Then you got to crawl under, check your the wear and tear on your brakes. Make sure if you are connected to a trailer, make sure your kingpin lock is still in place. You never want that to get popped while you're parked overnight. And just make sure nothing's falling off the trailer. Just basic, obvious stuff. If you're at the ports, right now is a good time to be doing inspections because there's not a lot of freight moving, and you can probably get into the shop easily.
Interesting. Do you get popped more often when there is less freight moving? I guess you're an easier target to find.
Yeah, in Philadelphia probably, because there are like Philadelphia police truck patrol vehicles that park out there, but those guys are all on the radios. As soon as they see one, everybody scatters.
Interesting. Well, I got a driver here from Schneider. Let's see how he does on his pre-trip. Roll the tape.
Welcome to another day in the life of an intermodal driver. As of right now, I got to get ready to pre-trip the trailer, make sure everything is in good working order in order for me to pick this box up and get this box delivered. So I already backed up under the unit, keeping the rear tires just underneath the nose of the trailer. And I'm just checking to make sure that the chassis bolster looks good. And
hands are good.
Oh, what do we have here?
Ooh,
I can't tie this down. I guess I'm gonna have to get it replaced. Continue my walk around, checking my tires.
It's a latch that keeps your, we call them pyramid lock.
Brakes on the other side, my airlines, all on the inside. All right, here's my rear corner. It's actually locked in place. Trailer looks good. I gotta put my gear ties on. Locking pins are in place. Do have my seal. Gotta make sure I put my lock on there when I come back around and get this other side fixed. My other side is locked down. Gotta put my gear tie on in place. So back to the front once again. Another one.
Yep.
It's cool. No worries. I might just go ahead inside to go talk to the mechanics and see if I get a couple of front latches to get those latches fixed.
So this is a go business. How tempting is it to be like, that can wait. I don't want to go into the mechanic. I will do this run, and when they bring the truck back, someone else can go look at that latch.
All depends on the terminal you go to, because you'll get inspected as you're leaving, and if if you got an inspector that goes through everything with a fine-tooth comb, they're going to have you turn back around and go to the shop inside there to get that chassis fixed.
This looked very hands-on, like he really had to use his eyes. But there's a lot of newer trucks. They have software now that will do sort of like a digital pre-check, similar to airplanes. Are you not a fan of those, and why?
I mean, everything's a shortcut now, but you still got to get out. It's not going to check your tire wear. It's not going to check whether you're still, connected through your kingpin. Even the guy, I know what video you're talking about. The guy did it as like a joke, just to show like the old timers like what trucks can do now. But my worry is that people will get lazy with software like that in trucks.
Yeah. But could it help at all? Could it find something that you can't find? Like already on trucks, does that not happen? Is there no diagnostic that happens?
You'll have lights on the dash. Yeah, you'll have lights on the dash and maybe like an error code that you got to like have taken to the shop, and the shop will tell you what's wrong. But I don't know. You still got to get out there and look, use a flashlight, and see what's going on with your truck.
Interesting. Now, if you were still in your truck, would you splash these guys right here? Let's take a look at these gentlemen. This is kind of gross, right? I mean, I don't know. This is like street water.
I laughed when I first saw this. I was like, oh, these guys are having the time of their life. And then like you look at the one guy and he's got his mouth open. They're drinking. So why would you want that in your beer or water or whatever you're drinking?
Do people not understand what animals we are? Like, we shut down the world to put masks on people because we're afraid of. We have people who sit on the side of the road drinking puddles.
gives road soda a whole new meaning.
It looks fun though. Would you? I mean, if you had like I don't know, some goggles, keep your mouth shut.
Yeah. As long as I knew I wasn't getting any of it in my mouth, or maybe if it was like the day after like a nice solid rainstorm to get the roads cleared off. Yeah, but if it's been like a week or two without any rain, you're getting all that nasty stuff right in your face.
Speaking of movies, I was trying to watch Triangle of Sadness last night, and then so I was 2.5 hours, so dipped out. But I was eating pistachios in the dark, and I came across one that like it felt like a little extra roasted. So I'm like, oh, it'll be like a roasty one, and I bit into it, and it was crunchy, and then it was like a raisin, and then it just like squirted into my mouth. I think I ate a damn bug.
There's always one of those in the bag.
Just a bug hiding out in there. I know, and I thought like because you have to open, you have to shuck them, like that would protect me. I don't know. Well, Super Trucker, thanks for joining me. Find Super Trucker on Twitter. Follow Back the Truck Up to get all the latest information from the trucking side. Catch their latest podcast that just came out today, Back the Truck. While you're there, also subscribe to What the Truck, or if you want to watch this, go to our YouTube channel, subscribe to the show, or download the FreightWaves TV app. You can find me on Twitter at Timothy Dooner. Hey, don't be a stranger, and take care.